I'm now going to show you how to create a frequency table, bar chart, and pie chart in Excel. What I have here is your responses to where you're from on the survey. So I have all the data points right here, and there are 34 of them actually, because the first row is just the heading. So there are 34 observations here. And I have sorted this from A to Z. So if you click on the heading and go to data and click on filter, then this little thing appears on the right hand side of the cell, and you can click on it and you can sort your data in different ways. So in my case, I wanted to sort everything from A to Z. That's what I've done. So this is all sorted. Now, first of all, I'm going to create a tabular representation of this data. Notice that this is a categorical data, and the measurement scale is nominal because we have labels or categories. So we select our data in this column. I select the whole thing. Then I go up here in the tabs and choose insert, and then I go with pivot chart and pivot table. Now if you have Excel on a MacBook, this might be in a different place, but it should be somewhere on your tabs, on the tabs on top of your Excel. So I'm going to click on pivot chart and pivot table. Then first it wants me to select the range of the data. Since I already selected my data, it knows where my data exists. Then it's going to create the report either in a new worksheet or in the same worksheet. I'm going to create it in the same worksheet. So I'm going to click on existing worksheet, and then I have to choose the location. So I click here, and then I want to paste everything right here. So I just click on that cell D2, and that's where it's gonna paste the results, and then click OK. Okay, so it created two items for me. The first item is the pivot table, and the second one is the pivot graph. So over here in the table, I'm going to create a frequency table, and here in the graph, I'm going to create a bar chart. Now we have to choose our data. Notice that the pivot chart fields are right here, and we have one variable. Since we selected our variable home, it automatically detected that. Also notice that the first row must be the title for that variable that you're working with. So I've got the list of all of my variables, which in this case is just one variable. So that's right there. Then we have to tell Excel what are the categories. So the categories are identified based on the values of the variable home. So I'm just going to drag home from the variables and drop it into categories. When I do that, you can see in our table, Excel automatically detected all of these classes or categories that this variable has. Now I'm going to resort this from Z to A so that I have West Coast, South, Midwest, and other country. Then next thing in our frequency table should be the frequencies. So in this column right next to it, we're going to count how many West Coasts are there, how many South are there, how many Midwest are there, and so on. So we're going to use this value field for the pivot table fields and do the counting. Now, what are we counting? We're counting the same variable. We're just counting different values of the same variable. So I'm going to drag home from up here and drop it into values. Notice how it says this is a count of home. So it's doing a counting. If it says something other than a count in your Excel, then you're going to click on this arrow, the drop down menu, and you're going to go to the value field settings and change it from whatever it is to count. Sometimes by default it is on sum, sometimes by default it's doing averages. In your case, you want to do a count, so make sure this is on count. Then OK, And you can see that Excel created a second column for us, which is the count of home. We have 24 observations that are labeled West Coast, 1 that's labeled South, 5 that are labeled Midwest, and 4 that are labeled other countries. And the total number of observations is 34. Now you can relabel all of these things however you'd like. Instead of saying count of home, I like to type frequency. So I have frequency. I just click on that cell and type frequency. And instead of grand total, I want to say total. So I click here and I type total. Okay, so this is my frequency table right here. Now notice the bar chart actually is created on its own as well, because like I told you before, the bar chart is created off of your frequency table. Now you can modify things in your bar chart as well. So for West Coast, we have 24 observations. So this bar goes all the way up to 24. For South, we have 1 observation. So this bar goes up to 1 and so on. Now I don't want it to show a total here, so I can just click on that and press delete on my keyboard to get rid of that field. The other thing is over here it just says total, but I like to give this a better title. So I can say or I can say the distribution of home place for Econ 216 students. So you can give it a different title. I don't really want it to show the frequencies here, so I can right click on this frequency and say hide it from my view so it doesn't show it. And there we go. We've got our classes or categories, we've got our bar charts, and this is our frequency table as well as a bar chart. Now remember, other than frequency, we can calculate percent frequency. So what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to add another column to my table and now calculate the percent frequencies. If you want to create another column, you're going to create another value. So I'm going to drag my variable again and drop it into values. But this time, instead of doing a count of home, I want to do a percent frequency. So I click on this drop down menu and I go to value field settings. It is doing a count, which is what I want because it's still percent frequency is still a type of count. So we want to keep that on count. But then here, we're going to go to the second tab that says show values as. And right there, we're going to change our calculations. So right now it's doing no calculations, it's just counting. But now we want to apply a calculation so that it calculates percent frequencies for us. If you choose percent of grand total or percent of column total, then it's going to do a percent frequency for you. I'm just going to go with the percent of grand total. So click on that and then click OK. Now you can see that it calculated the percent frequencies for me, and the grand total for the percent frequencies is always 100% if you did your calculation correctly. And over here, I'm just going to type on, click on this cell and type over percent frequency. And there we go. So here's my frequency table. And here's my bar chart. Notice that over here in my bar chart, I now have another bar that's added in orange. Those are the percent frequencies that's added to my bar chart. So if you want to get rid of that, you actually need to get rid of the values, because both of these figure and table are reading off of the fields that you create over here. So if you, for example, just want to show percent frequencies, get rid of the frequency and remove that field from your calculation. So right now we've got the percentages right here, and this is the percent frequency. Again, the distribution of home place for Econ 216 students. Now, if I want to create a pie chart, I select my data right here. So I select this part of the table that shows the categories and the percentages. I go up here to Insert tab and choose a pie chart. So now I have a pie chart that shows my data. You can also go to Design and choose different designs. For example, I like this design because it shows the percentages on each piece of the pie. So I'm going to go with that one. Then again, you can change the title however you like. You can get rid of that title entirely if you want. Just click on it and click on or press delete on your keyboard and you can get rid of that. Also see how the colors present each class of your categorical variable. So we have 70% that are West Coast, 3% South, 15% Midwest, and 12% other country. So that's how you create a pie chart for your categorical variable.